Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Beaver Watershed Alliance Quarterly Speaker Series. This is all about utilizing NRCS programs to restore streams, riparian, and wetlands in the West Fork White River watershed. And today's guest speaker is Sandi Formica, Executive Director for the Watershed Conservation Resource Center. We'll be introducing Sandi here shortly. But first, just wanted to talk a little bit about the speaker series and who we are. I'm Becky Roark. I'm the Executive Director for the Alliance, and we are a nonprofit located in the Springdale, Arkansas area, Northwest Arkansas. And our mission is to proactively protect, enhance, and sustain water quality in Beaver Lake and the integrity of its watershed. And we do that through education and outreach, technical assistance, and scientific monitoring. Here you'll see the White River Basin, and this covers the northern area of Arkansas. And we're basically in the headwaters of the White River Basin. So the Beaver Lake watershed starts over here in Northwest Arkansas and then flows into Table Rock Lake, Lake Taneycomo, Bull Shoals, and then moves easterly over to the Mississippi River, and then on down to the Gulf of Mexico. So this is zooming in to the Beaver Lake watershed area. So our focus here is several smaller watersheds you'll see here. And this includes about 17 cities and 6 counties and 2 ecoregions. And Beaver Lake, or the White River, was actually dammed back in the 1960s for water supply, flood control, and hydroelectric generation. So today, Beaver Lake is our source water drinking supply, and it supplies over 500,000 people in Arkansas with fresh drinking water. So we do quite a bit of education and outreach. We reach over 25,000 landowners through mailers, programming, and our e-news. And we also host these quarterly speaker series and BMP workshops. We host field tours and farm days out on site to work with landowners directly on implementing best management practices. We also help to install native plants and trees and other best management practices along riparians and critical landscape areas. And we also do a lot of scientific investigation, and we're out learning and working with partners to understand some of the issues and challenges that we face, such as sediment. It is the #1 pollutant in the Beaver Lake watershed area. We also help to remove low water crossings and reconnect miles of streams. And our watershed is primarily forested. So about 70% of our watershed is forested area. So we work a lot with landowners and cities and counties to manage forests. We also help farmers with pasture aeration to help water soak into the ground and increase their forage and production. And we also offer on-site technical assistance, parcel level on-site technical assistance. So that's just a little bit about us. And of course, we couldn't do all this without our partners. And we just want to thank everyone for joining today's speaker series. And I'd like to just encourage you to visit us at beaverwatershedalliance.org to learn more, or check out our new podcast, We Are Water, or feel free to email or call us at any time. So I'm going to unshare my screen and introduce our guest speaker today. And just a few housekeeping notes. Nate Wesson, our geospatial ecologist, is going to be typing some things in the chat box. Please do put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll try to answer those along the way or at the end. And this webinar will also be recorded and is available on demand. So you can, if you missed something, you can come back and check it out later. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Sandi. Sandi Formica is the Executive Director and co-founder of the Watershed Conservation Resource Center. She has a BS and MS degree in chemical engineering from the University of Arkansas, with an emphasis on contaminants, transport, and water, soil, and air. She manages the WCRC, an environmental nonprofit organization, since 2004, and is responsible for project design, technical support, grant development, and implementation of watershed-based projects. She's a regional expert in watershed assessment and planning, river stability and stream restoration design, implementation, and maintenance. She has served as project manager for 16 successful stream restoration projects in Northwest Arkansas. And previously, Sandi was the Environmental Preservation Division Chief at the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality and has worked in environmental consulting. Sandi is a recipient of the Ginger Tatum Conservation Award presented by the Arkansas Watershed Advisory Group. So Sandi, she's also a champion for the Beaver Lake watershed area, and we really enjoy partnering with her on a number of projects and appreciate her being here today to talk about this topic. So Sandi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, hello everyone, and I'd like to start with thanking Becky and the Beaver Watershed Alliance for inviting me today, and I hope that you guys find this presentation useful. So I'm going to start with just telling you a little bit about our organization, Watershed Conservation Resource Center, or WCRC. We are a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we've been around now for 16 years, and we have 11 staff persons, and our offices are in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And we specialize in watershed assessment, watershed planning, stream and river restoration, and we provide assistance to government agencies, municipalities, watershed groups, landowners, water districts, other NGOs, and more. And today, I'm going to talk about how we've been utilizing NRCS programs to do stream and river restoration work in the West Fork White River. So this, everything I'm presenting today is in the context of an RCPP project that we have within NRCS, and it's called the West Fork of the White River Watershed Initiative. So I'm going to give you an overview of that project, and then I'm going to talk about our restoration approach, and then I'm going to talk about how we've used the EQUIP program under this RCPP project to do small-scale stream bank and stream restoration projects, and then how we're utilizing the PL-566 program, which is an NRCS watershed program, to do large-scale river restoration projects. So we're going to start with the West Fork White River Watershed Initiative, and just to give you some history, we applied for this funding back in 2015, and we were awarded it in 2016. But the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and there's been many projects in Arkansas funded at this point, but the purpose of it is to increase restoration and sustainable use of soil, water, wildlife, and related natural resources on a regional or watershed scales. And one of the reasons why I think our project was so competitive is when they announced the request for proposals, they said they wanted us to combine existing NRCS programs and be innovative in how we did our project. There were 84 projects selected. It was a national competition. There were 84 projects selected out of 265 applications. And we're in our 4th year of this 5-year project. And we had over 14 partners. And again, the main partner on this is the NRCS. And so we're all working with the NRCS to implement the West Fork White River Watershed Initiative. We're the lead organization. We are also one of the PL-566 sponsors. Beaver Watershed Alliance is the lead on outreach, and Beaver Water District is the main PL-566 sponsor for that component of the project. They're also a contributor to funding along with the Walton Family Foundation and all our other list of partners. So I'm just going to kind of go over why I think what was key to us getting funded. Basically, we built the project on over 20 years of assessment data. So we had a solid scientific foundation that started with the 2004 watershed assessment. From that, we did another project with the NRCS called our CPI project, where we actually prioritized sites for river restoration, and that was completed in 2010. And then historically, there's been watershed planning, stakeholder-led watershed planning in the Upper White River, Beaver Lake watershed since the late 90s. So that played a major role. And then then our organization, the WCRC, with partners, we've been successfully implementing river restoration projects in Northwest Arkansas for more than 10 years. And we've quantified the reduction of sediment loadings. So those items, I think, played a major role. Then another part was that we had a history of strong partnerships in Northwest Arkansas, and even specifically in the West Fork White River and Beaver Lake watershed. And we used the data to support measurable outcomes. That's how we were able to bring in a lot of the partners. They wanted to see, well, if we give you this money, what kind of results are we going to have? How is it going to improve the watershed? And then we used the federal funding to leverage non-federal funding and vice versa. And we also developed clear partner roles and commitments. So if you decide you want to apply for an RCPP project, I'm not sure if they still require this, but at the time we applied, you actually had to have a letter of commitment for your partner funding. And so in some cases, that can take up to a year to get that level of a commitment. And then the project is located in Beaver Lake watershed. And this is our drinking water source for Northwest Arkansas. So it's a very important resource that needs to be protected. And that played a major role, I think, in us getting selected. And there's several 303D listed streams. It's a non-point source priority for nutrient reduction. So the West Fork White River Watershed Initiative, the RCPP, it includes, we had 2 NRCS programs, and one was the EQIP program and one was the PL-566. So under the EQIP program, which is where you implement best management practices on landowners' properties. So just to narrow that focused a little bit more, we were able to implement to date, we've implemented 3 small-scale stream restoration projects, and we will be constructing at least 2 more. Now, there's other practices that are being implemented, but I'm focusing on the stream restoration today. And then under PL-566, we're actually restoring reaches of channel riparian and wetlands, and we have the funding to do 2 large river restoration projects. So this was one of the reasons why we applied for the RCPP, was we wanted to develop this PL-566 program to be able to address needed large river restoration in the West Fork of the White River. And it's hard to find that level of funding. So through this PL-566, we've been able to do that. And so we've designated 2 sites that we're going to do, and we've initiated one of them. This project, or the PL-566 program, requires a watershed plan environmental assessment, and we're in our 4th year, and we just got that approved in October 2020 So I'll talk more about that later. And then the funding that we brought in through this RCPP was $8.7 million. 4.3 million of it is federal dollars, and the match on it was for our application was 50-50, and so we had a little bit more than that, 4.5 million in match. 3.3 million of the federal dollars is going towards stream restoration, and 1 million went towards equip, and we've completed about 75% of the equip funding. So that's an overview of the West Fork White River Watershed Initiative. It's an NRCS RCPP project. Now I want to talk about our restoration approach. And this also, I believe, helped us to get this project. So we use natural channel design principles to develop designs that restore the channel, the riparian, and wetland areas for unstable reaches of rivers and streams. And so I want to describe this in two parts. Channel restoration first. A lot of times, I believe too much emphasis goes on this. It's important, it has to be done right, but we also need to consider how we're going to restore the riparian areas. So, but the channel restoration is based on stream form and stable reach examples. We restore the hydrology. We want to get better defined riffles, runs, pools, and glides that all provides habitat and also helps to treat water. We account for sediment transport. These projects require extensive permitting that takes, months and sometimes longer. We stabilize stream banks, or the end result is you have stable stream banks. And I said usually requires heavy equipment construction. Almost every project requires heavy equipment construction. And when possible, or when the opportunity arises, we are also restoring wetlands. They're generally acting as overflow channels. They're still part of the channel, but they're inundated at the higher flood levels. And so the riparian part to this, they're restored by integrating vegetation establishment and management into the design. So this is a critical component, because if you just go out there and build something and you don't establish the vegetation, you won't have long-term protection of the restoration. So we use all native vegetation. Basically what we're doing is it's controlling erosion using live plants. It reduces water velocities, and we utilize techniques that we've developed to establish this native vegetation quickly, because you can have a flood right after you build a project. And another technique we've done is we actually incorporate plants during construction. So when we build our soil lifts, even when we build our toewood, we go ahead and incorporate native plants. We only use species of plants that are local to the ecoregion, and we remove invasives. And this improves the local ecology, and native plants also adapt easier. So the photos that you see below, that's on Tanyard Creek. But we've already built the channel part, which is a toewood bench, and you can't see most of it. But then on top of that toewood bench, we've done layers of floodplains. So this is our inner berm elevation. This is our bankful elevation, and this is just slightly higher than bankful. And all those flags are native plants that we incorporated during construction. So here we're building those soil lifts. And then this is what we got 1.25 years following this construction. And this is a mix of at least 40 or more species of plants native to the local ecoregion. And you can tell this is really going to slow the water down. So this is just an example of what you can achieve. This is a project that we've already built in the West Fork White River watershed in 2014. It's almost a mile long. We also restored wetlands and an incredibly unstable site. It's been a bear of a project, but this is the before restoration, and then this is falling. This is a couple areas. This is the most upstream area, and this is kind of the midsection of this project. And one of our PL-566 projects continues downstream of this project. So part of our restoration approach is after we've completed construction, we continue to do ongoing inspection, maintenance, and flood repairs. Because when you build in a river, it's going to flood. So it's better to be prepared for that instead of running around after it happens, looking for funding. So we inspect our projects following flood events. We conduct ongoing maintenance for at least 5 years. Really what that is vegetation management, and it takes about 5 years to get a good establishment of your natives, and we also treat for invasives. And then we conduct small repairs. If you have a small structural repair and fix it, it won't turn into a bigger repair that you'll have to spend more money later. So we try to repair as we see problems arise. And then in big floods, you may have to actually bring heavy equipment back out there to do repairs. So how do you pay for this? A lot of times we have money left over from grants, so we use that funding. Partners have chipped in. We've gotten flood disaster funding. The best approach is on the front end of a project is to establish funding for that establishment maintenance period for 5 years. And then another part to our restoration approach is that we conduct monitoring of the streambank erosion, and we estimate annual sediment and nutrient loads. So to do that, we actually sample stream banks and determine bulk density, particle size distribution. We also analyze for phosphorus and nitrogen. We did not include that in the RCPP project, the nutrient part, but we do that for most of our projects. And we also measure bank erosion. And you can get, from that, you can get your load reduction. So we have to collect that kind of data prior to restoration. And these are projects that we've completed in Beaver Lake watershed. And annually they're reducing or they're preventing sediment loss to the watershed by these numbers here. And the total is 15,000 tons a year. So you can see how, you know, after 10 years, this is 150,000 tons per year. So these projects, from reducing the amount of sediment going into the watershed, are highly effective. And then, as you're going to see when I give the examples, they also provide both aquatic and terrestrial habitat and improve the local ecology. So you get a lot of benefits socially and from a water quality standpoint for your money. Okay, so that was our restoration approach. Now I'm going to talk about, I'm back to the West Fork White River Watershed Initiative, and I'm going to talk about the EQUIP program that was part of our RCPP project. So at this point, we've completed all the landowner outreach, and we've also completed development of conservation-based plans. We've done like 191, and we've exceeded our target on that. And then eligible landowners engage in EQUIP contracts to implement recommended BMPs. We're 75% completed on that. And within those EQUIP contracts, we have had 5 landowners that have contracts for stream bank stream restoration projects. And we've implemented 3 of those projects. There's 2 more that we'll be implementing in 2021. And then there's, because we still have 25% of the money, there's a potential for 2 or 3 more contracts for stream banks. So I'm going to talk about and show you guys the 3 projects that we've implemented using EQIP funding to date. Okay, so the first one is on Rock Creek, and we used EQIP, the 580 stream bank and shoreline protection, to construct a towwood bench with vegetated soil lifts. And so this is a small scale stream bank restoration. Rock Creek is a tributary to the West Fork, and the length of the project is 350 feet. We had 12-foot high cut banks, and it's about a 6 square mile watershed. And so here's Rock Creek coming through here, and this is where they were losing quite a bit of stream bank. In fact, we were scheduled to build this, and a big storm came through, and we lost another 40 feet and had to do more surveying to be able to update our design. But the design, basically, this is towwood, is to build a towwood bench. And then we actually built a wetland in this area from the old channel. And this is the stream bank before restoration. So this is that area where I showed you where we constructed the wetland. So we actually moved the stream bank, or the stream channel, all the way back to here with the towwood bench. And so this is the towwood bench design. What this does is bedrock was about 4 or 5 feet from the water surface. We actually built this on the bedrock. We use logs to create with the root balls facing the stream. So that slows the water down, it stabilizes the toe of the bank, and then we build these soil lifts back on top and then slope the bank back. And we use all natural materials, trees, brush, gravel, provides roughness and reduces deer bank velocities. And this towwood also provides cover for fish and wildlife. So now we've constructed, so that spot, if you go back here, this point here is way over here. So we've reconstructed this stream bank completely. And then this is the towwood, so this is the root wad sticking out. And as I said, this structure goes another 4 feet below the surface. And here we're building these soil lifts and planting them as we build them. And then this is right after construction is completed. So here is our inner berm elevation. This is our bank full elevation. And then we slope back up to the terrace. And then that wetland is about where that person is up. It's right over in this area. And then to complete the finished cross section, so I talked about create inner berm and bank full features. So that's these 2. And so here you can see this is just not quite a year since we built this. Actually, this is not quite a year, and this is the following year. So what these soil lifts do is they provide a soil medium to establish this healthy vegetation. As I said, we're pre-planting during construction. It's all natural materials that are going to degrade. And we use plants native to the Boston Mountains ecoregion, and our plants were bare roots, plugs, pots, and native grasses. And then we put native grass and wildflower seed throughout the entire site. So the old cut bank is way back here. So that was the 580. So this project, we did 4 more EQIP practices up on the terrace. And we riparian herbaceous cover, forest cover. So all of this is planted with trees and shrubs and will be, will eventually go back into forest. But on the other side of that, we just did herbaceous cover. So that's just going to be wildflowers and grasses, native grasses. And then we also had mulching and then tree and shrub site preparation. And this just lets you know that the landowners are extraordinarily happy with this project. This is the first year. There was a ton of wildflowers out there, and eventually this will go to a forest. Okay, this is our this is another equip funded stream restoration. So I call this more of a stream restoration because we did more than one bank and we did a couple of riffles. We actually did 3 riffles. It's a smaller stream, which is a 2.3 square mile watershed, smaller banks. We did about 350 feet. It's an unnamed tributary to the West Fork. And this is the upstream end of the project before restoration. And this is the downstream stream bank before restoration. So on this one, we're implementing 580 again, and then also 410 grade stabilization structures. So the restoration design is here. This is the upstream area, so the water's flowing this way. And we did kind of a tow wood rock combination because we didn't want to dig out soil and trees. And we did mostly rock down here for the same reason. And I'll show that later. We use the structures to increase the pool depths and keep water on the tow wood and to prevent lateral migration of channel head cuts. So without these, you know, you can end up with a head cut through here. And the structures also help to direct the flow to the center of the channel, and it stabilized the riffle and the other bed features. Okay. So I'm just going to show you the transformation of the upstream end first. This particular landowner was really nervous about doing this project. She was worried that it wouldn't look natural. But after it was done, she loved it, and you can read what she said about it. But anyway, this upstream end, we did tow wood at the base, but because this stream is so incised, we decided to go with a layer of rock on top of the wood, and then we went to a bio block to establish the native vegetation. And here we are building the tow wood. And again, so I'm downstream looking upstream. So at this point, we've got the wooden and the rock, and we're building the bio block on top. And then this is our first grade control structure. And these rocks are all footered with 2 more rocks. So this structure goes another 4 feet below the water surface. And there's 2 rocks that are holding it. If you just put these rocks on the gravel, they will fall into the stream on the first flood event. And then this is our sill going back in this way. Okay, so this is that first structure. Now you can't see it. Oh, let me go back. We also put fabric in here, and there was clay on site, and we used the fabric and clay to seal off this water. And see where the water level is now. And then once we're completed, you can see this structure is backing the water up on the wood. So that's the structure that you saw in the previous photo. This is the second structure. The sill goes this way, and there's a sill that goes this way with this structure. And then there's a third structure here. And then this is our bio block is here, and all the green is a nursery crop that we put out to get grass established immediately. And then this is this is the same site. This is from upstream looking downstream. So here's that first structure. And we actually reconstructed this riffle here. And then this is the restored stream bank. Okay, this is the downstream area. And the reason why we went with a rock toe here instead of toe wood is we didn't want to take out all these trees. And that's what we would have had to have done to put toe wood in there. And even though we did move the channel back out, it was too much to put wood in there. We didn't have enough space, and we would have had to cut all this down. So this is and then to tie it into the grade below the project, we used 3 structures to drop it down. This first structure backs the water up on the wood. So at this point, we have constructed the rock toe. There was no water in the stream. These rocks are sitting on the bedrock. And we haven't done anything to the bank or added the soil mattress yet. And then this is downstream. This is the first structure downstream. So this is the structure that's going to back. So notice where the water level is here. We're going to end up backing the water level up over the second rock with this structure. And you can kind of see our footers. There's another level of footers under these rocks as well. Okay, this is downstream looking upstream, the finished product. And you can see the water is covering 2 of the rock levels. This is the upstream, the 3 grade control structures upstream, and then that's the pool, and that was the previous. And then this is our 3 structures. You can see they're backing the water up, but just note that these structures all go to bedrock, and they go 4 feet. There's another 2 rocks over them. Okay, and then the last project I'm going to show you today is a smaller, that was equip funded. It's a smaller one, and these are the 5 equip practices that we used. We didn't have a really good before picture, but there's a big cut bank in here, and then a debris jam on top of that. This is our toe wood bench. We were able to we did some rock down here to save this tree. And then we've got 2 soil mattresses or soil lifts, all planted with native plants. And then this is just right after we finished construction. And then here's the equip funding that we got in the project cost. So the first project on Rock Creek, we received $92,000. The cost of it to implement it is $142,000. This project's about a year and a half old, and we've spent this much on maintenance. This is mainly to get that vegetation established. And so that's our total cost to date. This is the amount of funding we got. And so this was, the difference between these 2 is paid through the other funding we have through the RCPP. And then we've got $93,000 is our total on project 2. That's the unnamed tributary where we did a stream restoration. And this is what we received from equip. Implementation cost was $92,000. And then this is what we spent on maintenance. We just finished that project a couple months ago. And then project number 3, which is also about a year and a half old, we received almost $39,000. It cost $45,000 to construct it. And then we've spent $3,600 on maintenance. So you can kind of see the smaller the project, the more the equip cost covers. Really, you can't build projects with the equip funding with that are much bigger than the sites that we showed you. So now I'm going to talk about the large scale river restoration project utilizing PL-566. So this is why we needed the PL-566, is to tackle these bigger projects. And so the purpose was to restore reaches of river utilizing natural channel and design principles, improve water quality, enhance fisheries and other wildlife. And to be able to get PL-566 funding, you have to have an approved watershed plan. So I'm going to talk about that first. Well, hang on. So what we committed to through the RCPP project under PL-566 is to restore a minimum of 1 mile of river and 2 miles of riparian, reduce sediment by 75%, and restore wetlands and adjacent floodplains, and obtain 5 conservation easements. And we have gotten at least 3 of the 5 conservation easements at this point. And so now I'll talk about the watershed plan, because that's a huge part of this project, because you can't spend a penny of that money until this thing is approved. And so the purpose of that watershed plan was to address the channel instability that had been documented in the West Fork of the White River watershed. And we wanted to do that through designing, constructing, maintaining large-scale river restoration projects. And these projects involve multiple landowners and uses the Public Law 566 authority. And then what do we get from it? It results in the reduction of erosion, land loss, sediment loading to the West Fork White River and Beaver Lake watershed, while improving aquatic, riparian, and wetland habitats. And so this is a USDA Natural Resource Service program. And the lead organization, we were the lead organization for the RCPP, and we are a sponsor organization, Watershed Conservation Resource Center. And then the lead sponsor organization is Beaver Water District. And you can't do these projects unless you have a lead sponsor organization. And I'm not going to get into that, but they have to meet certain requirements to qualify for that. And we had to show in our watershed plan the need for sediment reduction. So we had a 303 delisted stream, West Fork White River, for excessive silt loads and high turbidity. The West Fork is a major tributary to the White River, which forms Beaver Lake, which is the drinking water source. And so this project can help to prevent expensive treatment of drinking water in the future. So that was one of the reasons for doing it, and it protects our drinking water source. And then it's a local and regional priority area for sediment reduction. So under the NRCS, it falls under the Mississippi River Basin Critical Conservation Area. It's an impaired 303D stream, so that's at the state level, and it's also at the state level a non-point source program priority. So all of this was part of the watershed plan. And then the 2004 watershed assessment told us that 66% of the annual sediment loading was from streambank erosion, from accelerated streambank erosion in the West Fork White River. And then the CPI, the NRCS CPI work identified 29 unstable reaches. So that's several stream banks, a reach is several stream banks, not just one, that needed restoration, and it prioritized sites. And then the project also supports watershed planning in the Beaver Lake Watershed Protection Strategy. So it's one of the BMPs recommended in the strategy. And so what we did is we updated what we did in the CPI. We updated the reaches in need of restoration. There was actually several projects that had already been completed. And so what you see here is the list of sites prioritized between 3 groups. Some were either restored or didn't show significant erosion, so we removed them from the list. Anyway, it's complicated. You can read the watershed plan, but we still have 29 sites that need restoration. And we also identified and updated 25 stream banks that were that potentially could be standalone projects that also need restoration. So this is part of the watershed plan. So what's the results to date for these large scale river restorations utilizing PL-566? The watershed plan has been approved. The watershed agreement has been signed by sponsors. So our lessons learned on this, we thought it was going to take 2 years, and that was a long time, but it actually took us over 3 years. So what we have decided, if we do another one of these, we want to do the watershed plan before we get the funding for the restoration work. So make that a standalone process. And then we thought we knew what we were doing on that watershed plan. If I had to do it over again, I would have asked NRCS to help us a lot earlier in the process. So the NRCS people are just fantastic to work with, and they've been great helping us with this project. I wish I would have asked for their help on the watershed plan earlier. So with our current RCPP funding, we are able to do 2 of those priority sites selected for restoration. Part of this, again, which makes it more complicated, is you have to have signed access agreements with a 20-year commitment from any landowner that participates in this project, in a PL-566 project. And to date, we've got 6 of 8 landowners that have signed, and we filed them in the at the county courthouse. The other 2 are going to sign. We're just working out some stuff with the lawyers. The 2 sites, site 16, which is downstream of the Dye Creek Bridge, will be doing over 6,000 feet. It's the worst site in the West Fork watershed. There'll be 6,000 feet of channel restoration and 12,000 feet of riparian. We've completed the survey, and construction will begin in 2021. This site we're estimating will reduce sediment by over 10,000 tons per year. Sorry about that. But a 12-year average shows 45,000 tons per year. So it's an incredibly unstable site, and it will take care of like 25% of the sediment from streambank erosion in the watershed. Site 12B is 1,800 feet downstream of our current airport project, and it's 3,600 feet of riparian. And we've completed all the surveying, design, materials, everything. We've started construction. And actually that 2,300 tons was a previous estimate. It's more like 9,800 tons of sediment per year will be reduced from that site. And there's a couple of stream banks. The one on the left is downstream of the airport, and the one on the right is one of the banks along Dye Creek. And so I'm going to just quickly go through Dye Creek. We've completed all the surveying, and this is the river. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 very large eroding stream banks that will be addressed through this project. It's over 1 mile long. We actually meet our commitment with this project, but we feel like we have enough funding to do the other project as well. Okay, and you can see the design pattern, and we actually did a design through the CPI, but we're having to update that because the river has changed drastically since we've done that design. We hope to start construction on this project fall of 2021. Okay, here's the airport site. It's 1,800 feet. It's downstream of an existing stream restoration project that's been very successful. And we're at 84 square miles, so large river restoration. We've got bank heights that are 8 to 13 feet high. And all the survey work has been completed. And the restoration design, boy, I'm running out of time here, you guys. I'm gonna go through this quick. Here's our design, just show you quickly. Here's the old channel, and this is the new pattern. And we're doing toewood here, here, here. And there's actually an upstream part of this where there's more toewood. And then we have structures in these areas. And this is our vegetation. We'll be incorporating over 5,000 plants, 48 species. And we've gotten all of our permits. This just shows you all the massive amounts of materials that we've acquired. Here are the stream banks. We started construction in October. We're building toewood and structures. Right now, we're mainly focusing on the toewood. Later, you can see that. This is a completed toewood bench. There's a completed toewood bench here, and we'll be starting the structure soon. Oh, and that's it. This is the upstream of the area. I took this picture the other day, the restored section. I just want to make the point that you can get lots of benefits from this kind of work besides the benefit of protecting our drinking water source. There's recreational benefits, economic, and education. And that's it. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
Well, thank you, Sandi. There are a couple of questions here. We have 3 questions in the queue. One, going back to the stream restoration, kind of how that works. We had a question on how are the rocks tied together? Rock bolts, rebar, etc.
They're not. So that's what's important, is we place these rocks in a way where they interlock by themselves and they're footered. So they are not tight. Everything is natural. We do not use any rebar or concrete or anything like that. And you have to build them according to the design, and they will stay in place. So we always use like an overlap effect on the structure. So they actually, the rock downstream, the bottom footer rock will be the furthest out, and they're stacked cascading, and that helps reinforce it. And then as you build it, so we're on site with the operator when we build these projects and helping them to place these rocks so they interlock in a way. And occasionally you may have to go back and put a rock back in place after a flood event. But if you build them according to the design and you footer them to bedrock, they will stay in place. If you don't footer them to bedrock, if the bedrock is more than 8 or 9 feet, depending on how large the river is, you might be able to just go down that far. But it just depends on, you have to look at every site and figure out if you can get away with not footering the bedrock. So it depends on the pattern or the section of the river that you're working on at that point. You also have to do sills, or the river will just cut around your structures. And sills are tricky as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Another question is, was the West Fork White River Watershed Plan a component of the 9-element plan, or was it developed separately?
It was developed completely separately. It is a huge, huge undertaking. And, you know, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's a lot. But there is a, you know, a specification that the NRCS has, and there's, you know, you have to meet all these different things that they ask for. And so, yeah, we had to, you know, we used a lot of existing data, but you still have to compile the whole thing.
And one more question here. How many volunteers or what local agencies, stakeholders, et cetera, are typically involved in planning and implementing the restorations?
Well, so we have 14 partners on this project. So people that are directly involved, it's quite a few, because the permitting introduces even more entities that are involved. But most of our projects, at a minimum, whether it's this one or not, I'm going to get back to our partners. That's where I'm going here, because I want to make sure, I think the NRCS and all of our partners for helping us to make this project happen. I think it's just really good for our ecology, water quality, and for society in general. It's a lot of slides here. So we do not depend on volunteers to get these projects done. But we do bring volunteers in to help with the plantings, sometimes with invasive removal. They help us collect native seed. We try to collect indigenous seed to put out at these sites. So they help us collect native seed and process it. So we utilize volunteers from more of an education standpoint. We feel like these projects they're high risk, that we're able to get it. We're able to make them work, and they work well, and they're great for the ecology. But we don't want to depend on volunteers to do them. We want to make sure we have the funding and the capability to design and implement them. And then we bring the volunteers in sort of as extra help when needed, and as an education tool.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sandi. This was a really great, informative presentation, and we just appreciate you being our guest speaker today for our quarterly speaker series. So thank you so much.
Hey, can I say one more thing, Becky? I want to just thank all of our partners on this, and this has been a great project. And I want to thank BWA. We've worked really closely with BWA to do the outreach, and they've done a really great job on that. And they've helped us to get all those watershed, all the conservation planning done. And then I want to thank also Beaver Water District. They stepped up to the plate to be the sponsor for the PL-566. We wouldn't be able to do these large river restoration projects without them being the main sponsor for the PL-566. And then everybody, I want to thank everybody else for their support as well.
Yes, and that's kind of the design behind these quarterly speaker series, is to kind of make the case for investing in watershed protection. So we just really appreciate this information today, and also want to thank Beaver Water District as a sponsor for our quarterly speaker series program as well. So so Sandi, if folks want to learn more, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, at the end of this presentation is, and there's a few mistakes on there. So before we put this presentation out, I'm going to make some corrections that I caught. But at the end, there's my email and phone number. You can email you. If you still call people, you can call me. I'm okay with that.
All right. And again, thank you all so much for attending our speaker series today. That wraps it up for our program today. Our next one will be in February 2021. If you have some ideas or topics you'd like to hear more about, please do contact us. You can email us at info@beaverwatershedalliance.org, or you can call us at 479-750-8007 to get a hold of us anytime. And again, we appreciate your time today. And this will be recorded and put on our Beaver Watershed Alliance YouTube channel. So in a couple of weeks, we should have that up. If you missed something today, you'll be able to go back and watch this again. So again, Thank you all so much, and hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Becky, are you still there?